Brilliance Audio presents Christmas by the Lighthouse by Rebecca Boxall, performed by Elizabeth Nolden. He was alive, but he wasn't living. He was 36 years old, and he'd never been in love, for goodness sake. Still, he had a decent job, which he was determined to be grateful for, given the perilous state of the economy. Never mind that it bored him to tears. Jude was trained as a teacher, but for the last 4 years he'd worked as a call centre operative for the international banking arm of Hedgeley's Bank, where he sat all day long dealing with calls from unhappy customers. Or, if he was lucky, from clients who couldn't be bothered to check their account balances online, so who called him up instead. He felt his soul being destroyed with every day that passed. His colleague, Derek, who'd sat in the pod next to him until recently, had clearly felt the same. He went out to get a sandwich one lunch break, leaving his jacket behind on his chair, and never returned. Jude envied Derek. He told his sister Daisy all about it the day it happened, calling her just before she started her shift at St. Thomas's Hospital in London. "Why do you envy him?" she asked. "Jude, what the hell's the poor sod going to do now? He won't get a reference, will he? And he'll have to buy a new jacket." Daisy was always one to consider practicalities. "I suppose I just admire anyone who has the gumption to actually do something to change their life, if it isn't working for them. Come on, Jude. There's loads you could do to change things if you really wanted to. You could join an online dating agency, find a new job. Why not rent an apartment by the sea, instead of mouldering in that grubby little basement flat in town?" Jude laughed. Daisy had a knack for using particularly descriptive words, emphasizing them in her naturally dramatic way. Mouldering was a definite Daisy word. And it was true, he could do all of those things. In an island with some of the world's most beautiful beaches, it made no sense to be living where he did, with an urban view of St. Heliers' rusting cylindrical gas holder. But he just didn't have the energy to change. Perhaps he was depressed. But didn't that mean you couldn't even get out of bed? He always got out of bed, eventually. He religiously kicked off his duvet after pressing his snooze button 3 times, then took a deep breath before hauling himself into the shower, listening to Chris Evans' breakfast show. This always perked him up a little, but he definitely wasn't one to whistle or sing in the shower. Instead, he tended to bow his head, resigning himself to the day ahead and letting the water pour over him, into his eyes and down his body, until his allotted 5 minutes of hot water ran out and he was forced to search around blindly for his towel, put in his contact lenses, and, shivering, run to his bedroom to dress. The fact he'd never been in love was at the top of his list of personal failings. It was something he was deeply ashamed of, suspecting it indicated a significant flaw in either his looks or his personality. Actually, he thought it must be the latter, surely worse than unfortunate looks, as his friends had told him that of all of them, he was the one who attracted women on a night out. The rest of his mates would take full advantage of this, while by the end of the night, it would be Jude propping up the bar alone, staring into his drink. On this particular Tuesday morning, having now showered and dressed in his Marks & Spencer suit, he checked himself in the hall mirror before leaving the flat. He tried to view himself objectively. Tall, for a start. That was considered an advantage on the whole. Hair once described as tousled and golden by an ex, though he deemed it messy and dark blonde. Chameleon eyes that were green or blue, depending on his surroundings, with long lashes that by some stroke of luck were dark, despite his fair hair. A square jaw sporting designer stubble, laziness when it came to shaving. Slim, though not very muscly, again, too lazy. He really should take some exercise. But overall not too bad, all things considered. He grabbed his umbrella and locked the front door behind him, ruminating on the shortcomings of his personality on the 15-minute walk through the rain-lashed streets of St. Helier to the office. After all, a little critical self-talk was just the sort of start to their day a possibly depressed person needed. He was lazy. He was directionless. He was boring.